When I first bought the patch of land on Cedar Pine Drive, it was nothing but weeds, mud, and a few stubborn pine trees. The local HOA, Cedar Pines Residential Association, had a reputation for being strict. Still, I figured since my land sat just outside the manicured loop of their perfect homes, I'd have a little freedom. I was wrong. The moment I began building my ugly cabin, as they called it, Karen Foster appeared. Karen wasn't just a neighbor, she was the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA. Her perfectly ironed blouses, pearl necklaces, and clipboard made her seem like she'd stepped right out of a sitcom. The first time she approached, I was hammering beams into place. "Excuse me," she said sharply, "but that structure looks unapproved." I laughed. "It's a cabin, not a skyscraper." Her eyes narrowed. "Cedar Pines has aesthetic standards. That shack doesn't fit." For months, Karen and the HOA sent letters. Non-compliant materials. Unapproved. Design. Excessive. Natural appearance. I built it anyway. My cabin wasn't pretty by their standards, it had raw timber walls, reclaimed metal roofing, and a wraparound porch that looked straight out of a frontier movie. When it was done, I hosted a small bonfire party with my friends. Karen watched from her pristine lawn, clutching her wine glass like she was witnessing the fall of civilization. The HOA fined me 3 times for unauthorized gatherings. I didn't care. That cabin was my sanctuary. Every plank told a story. Every nail I hammered reminded me I didn't need polished perfection to feel at home. Then the storm hit. A massive thunderstorm rolled through, flooding several of the HOA's manicured lawns and cracking their driveways. My cabin, solid as a rock. The reclaimed would shed the water like armor. And my drainage ditches worked perfectly. Karen came by days later, mud on her shoes, fuming. "You got lucky," she said. "Maybe," I replied. "Or maybe good design isn't about how it looks on the surface." She stomped away without answering. I didn't know it then. But that ugly little cabin was about to change everything, not just for me, but for the entire Cedar Pines community. It started with a single phone call from a travel blogger looking for authentic rustic retreats. I didn't think much of it when she stayed a weekend. But when her article went viral, the same neighbors who mocked my eyesore suddenly wanted to book a stay. Even Karen's smug smile began to twitch with envy. That's when the real drama began. Within a month of that blogger's article, my inbox was flooded with messages. "Is the cabin available for the weekend? Can we book the entire property for a family retreat? Do you host events?" At first, I laughed. My ugly cabin was just a 1-bedroom with a wood stove and an outdoor shower. Hardly a luxury resort. But the demand was relentless. I charged $150 a night at first. Then $250. Every weekend was booked. Guests called it the perfect digital detox. Meanwhile, Karen couldn't stand it. She called a special HOA meeting just to complain. "His property is disturbing the peace," she snapped. "Strangers are driving through our neighborhood every weekend. But they're paying guests," one of the other board members said. "And they don't cause any trouble." Karen slammed her folder shut. "This isn't a hotel district." The HOA sent me a cease and desist letter claiming short-term rentals weren't permitted. But here's the kicker, my land technically sat outside their jurisdiction. They had no legal authority over me. When I sent them the county property map highlighting the boundary, their silence was deafening. Over the next year, I expanded the cabin. I added 2 tiny guest lodges made from reclaimed barn wood, a fire pit area, and a small wooden dock by the creek. Guests loved the rustic charm. Bloggers, influencers, and even a travel TV show came by to feature it. I renamed it Cedar Creek Retreat and created a simple website. By the second year, I was fully booked months in advance and earning more than I ever had in my day job. I quit my office job and focused on building more Karen couldn't hide her jealousy. One day, she showed up unannounced, wearing her usual pearls and passive-aggressive smile. "You know," she said, looking around, "this place doesn't look so bad now. We were thinking, maybe the HOA could partner with you. We can help manage your bookings." I smirked. "You mean, take a cut?" She stiffened. "We prefer to think of it as community integration." I laughed so hard she turned red. "Karen, you called it an eyesore. Now it's suddenly an asset." She forced a smile. Progress requires flexibility. As she walked away, I realized something. The same people who mocked me for being different now wanted to profit from what made me unique. And that was just the beginning of their schemes. When Karen's partnership proposal didn't work, she switched tactics. The HOA began sending noise complaints every weekend, without fail. They even claimed my guests were trespassing on community trails. I installed cameras. The footage showed nothing but happy visitors roasting marshmallows and kayaking. No loud parties, no trouble. Still, the HOA wouldn't stop. Then, one morning, I received a notice from the county inspector. A safety review request had been filed anonymously. The inspector, a friendly guy named Tim, showed up apologetically. "Sorry, man, I have to check the structures." HOA filed it as a public concern. I gave him a tour. Everything passed inspection, my wiring, plumbing, fire safety, all up to code. He even complimented my drainage design. When he left, he muttered, "They're just trying to get under your skin." But the HOA wasn't done. They started harassing guests directly. One family told me Karen approached them in her golf cart, clipboard in hand, and said, "You're staying on an unlicensed property. You could be fined." They checked out early. That was the last straw. I filed a complaint against the HOA for harassment and interference with business operations. My lawyer sent them a letter demanding they cease all contact with my guests. Suddenly, the tone shifted. Karen showed up again, this time with the HOA president. "Mr. Collins, we'd like to discuss an arrangement," he said smoothly. "Your resort brings visitors through our neighborhood. It increases our maintenance costs. We believe a contribution fee is fair." "Contribution fee?" I asked. "You mean a tax?" He smiled. "A shared benefit arrangement." I crossed my arms. "You fined me, harassed my guests, and mocked my home. You get nothing." Karen's jaw tightened. "You'll regret that." For a while, business continued as usual. But the HOA wasn't bluffing. They started lobbying the county to redefine zoning laws, an underhanded move that could make my land subject to their regulations. I wasn't about to let that happen. I hired a zoning attorney and began gathering evidence of their misconduct: emails, letters, videos, and testimonies from guests. When my lawyer reviewed everything, he grinned. "They've overstepped every legal line possible. We can take them down." The HOA wanted a cut of my dream. Instead, they were about to pay for underestimating the men with the ugly cabin. The court date arrived 6 months later. By then, Cedar Creek Retreat had expanded into 5 luxury cabins with solar panels, an outdoor yoga deck, and a small cafe that served local honey and pastries. I had a team of employees, a loyal clientele, and a waiting list stretching into next summer. Karen and the HOA, on the other hand, looked nervous. The courtroom buzzed as my lawyer presented our case: emails threatening fines, footage of Karen harassing guests, zoning manipulation attempts, and the anonymous inspection request traced back to her IP address. When the judge looked over the evidence, she didn't hide her disapproval. "This isn't community oversight," she said. "It's harassment." The verdict was clear: the HOA was fined for defamation, ordered to cover my legal costs, and barred from interfering with my business again. Karen looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. Reporters picked up the story. Local HOA loses battle against rustic resort. Bookings exploded. Guests came from across the country, eager to stay at the cabin that beat the HOA. Months later, I saw Karen again, this time at the cafe. She ordered a coffee and stood awkwardly by the counter. "It's beautiful here," she admitted softly. "Thanks," I said, handing her the cup. "Funny how the eyesore turned out, huh?" She sighed. "Maybe we were too quick to judge." I smiled. "Maybe you were." As she left, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of peace. The cabin had started as my rebellion against conformity. But it had become something more, a symbol of freedom, creativity, and resilience. That night, I sat on the porch, watching the sunset spill over the mountains. The lights from the new cabins flickered below, guests laughing around fire pits. The once ugly structure now glowed like a beacon of possibility. Funny how life works. The HOA mocked me for building something different. Now they send me Christmas cards. Some of their homes even feature rustic wood facades inspired by mine. Karen still lives down the road. Every now and then, she waves as she drives by, pretending she doesn't remember the clipboard wars. But I do. And every time I cash another booking payment, I raise a glass to her, my unintentional business motivator. The cabin that offended the neighborhood became the pride of the mountain. And the woman who once tried to tear it down, she now tells visitors she knew me before I was famous.